Today we are talking about sexual assault in Uganda and the long, difficult fight led by women to demand safety, dignity, and justice in their daily lives. This is not an easy subject, but it is an important one, because behind the statistics are real people whose voices have often been ignored or silenced. Sexual assault in Uganda affects women and girls across all regions, ages, and social classes, from crowded cities to remote rural villages. Many cases involve rape, defilement of minors, domestic violence, and coercion by people known to the victim, including partners, relatives, teachers, and employers. For years, survivors have faced not only physical and emotional trauma, but also deep social stigma that discourages them from speaking out. In many communities, sexual violence is treated as a private matter rather than a serious crime, leading families to push for silence instead of justice. Girls are often blamed for the violence committed against them, accused of dressing improperly or behaving in ways that supposedly invited abuse. This culture of blame creates fear and shame, making it extremely difficult for survivors to report what happened. In Uganda, the legal system does criminalize sexual assault, including rape and defilement, but enforcement has long been weak and inconsistent. Police stations may lack trained officers, forensic resources, or private spaces where survivors can safely give statements. Some women report being laughed at, dismissed, or pressured to withdraw their complaints when they seek help from authorities. Corruption and lack of accountability further undermine trust in the justice system, leaving many survivors feeling abandoned. For rural women, the barriers are even higher, as police posts and courts may be far away, costly to reach, or completely inaccessible. Medical care after assault is another major challenge, especially when hospitals are understaffed or lack essential supplies. Without timely medical attention, survivors face increased risks of infection, unwanted pregnancy, and long-term health complications. Despite these obstacles, Ugandan women have refused to remain silent and have organized to fight back in powerful ways. Grassroots women's groups have emerged across the country to provide safe spaces where survivors can share their stories without judgment. These groups often offer counseling, legal advice, and emotional support that many women cannot find elsewhere. Activists have worked tirelessly to educate communities about consent, bodily autonomy, and the rights of women and girls. They hold community dialogues that challenge harmful cultural norms and confront myths that excuse sexual violence. Education has become a key tool in the fight, especially efforts aimed at teaching boys and young men about respect and accountability. Women's rights organizations have also pushed for stronger laws and better implementation of existing ones. They advocate for survivor-centered approaches that prioritize healing and dignity rather than blame and punishment alone. One major focus has been the issue of defilement, which refers to sexual abuse of minors and remains alarmingly widespread. Girls as young as 10 or even younger are targeted, often by older men who exploit poverty, power imbalances, and lack of protection. Activists argue that poverty plays a significant role, as families struggling to survive may be unable to protect their children effectively. Some girls are forced into transactional relationships for school fees, food, or basic necessities, exposing them to abuse. Women fighting sexual violence in Uganda often stress that this is not only a criminal issue but also a social and economic one. They point out that empowering women economically can reduce vulnerability and give survivors more options to leave abusive situations. Legal aid organizations play a crucial role by helping survivors navigate complex court procedures. They assist with filing cases, gathering evidence, and facing perpetrators who may be influential or powerful figures. In some cases, women have taken great personal risks by speaking out against abusers who are community leaders or family breadwinners. Their courage has helped bring attention to how power and inequality fuel sexual violence. Media has also become a battleground in this fight, with journalists and activists using radio, television, and social platforms to raise awareness. Survivor stories shared in the media have helped break the silence and show that sexual assault is not rare or isolated. However, women who speak publicly often face online harassment, threats, and further stigma, showing how difficult the fight remains. Young women and girls have increasingly joined the movement, using their voices to demand change in schools and universities. Sexual harassment and assault in educational institutions have sparked protests and campaigns calling for safer learning environments. Students have demanded clear reporting mechanisms and serious consequences for perpetrators. Faith leaders have also been drawn into the conversation, with some using their influence to condemn sexual violence and support survivors. Others, however, have been criticized for promoting messages that reinforce silence or submission. This tension highlights the complexity of changing deeply rooted beliefs in a society with strong cultural and religious traditions. Women's movements in Uganda often emphasize that sexual violence is not a women's issue alone, but a human rights issue. They call on men to become allies, to challenge abusive behavior among peers, and to support survivors without judgment. Some men's groups have begun working alongside women's organizations to promote positive masculinity and respect. The fight has also reached the policy level, with activists pushing for reforms in policing, healthcare, and education systems. They argue that police officers need specialized training to handle sexual assault cases with sensitivity and professionalism. Healthcare workers are urged to treat survivors with compassion and confidentiality, recognizing the trauma they carry. Schools are seen as critical spaces where attitudes can change early, through comprehensive sex education and clear rules. International organizations have supported some of these efforts, providing funding, training, and global attention. However, Ugandan women stress that lasting change must come from within communities themselves. They insist that local voices and experiences should guide solutions rather than imported ideas alone. One of the most powerful aspects of this movement is the solidarity among women from different backgrounds. Urban professionals, rural farmers, students, and mothers have found common ground in their shared struggle. Through marches, workshops, and court cases, they have made it clear that silence is no longer an option. Still, progress is slow and uneven, and many survivors continue to face injustice and neglect. Court cases can drag on for years, causing emotional exhaustion and financial strain. Some perpetrators walk free due to lack of evidence, intimidation of witnesses, or procedural failures. These outcomes can discourage other survivors from coming forward, reinforcing cycles of abuse. Women fighting sexual assault often speak about resilience, not as a choice, but as a necessity for survival. They describe finding strength in community, faith, and the hope that their struggle will protect future generations. Stories of small victories matter deeply, such as a conviction secured, a survivor healed, or a girl kept in school. Each success sends a message that change, while difficult, is possible. At the same time, activists remind the public that awareness alone is not enough without action. They urge governments, communities, and individuals to take responsibility and speak out against abuse.